I'm here to ask for your generous support for a new album of solo lute music. This is actually my second album funded by Kickstarter. The first was dedicated to extremely obscure lute music from the classical era, and it did incredibly well thanks to the support of people like you. So the new album will include pieces by J.S. Bach, Sylvius Leopold Weiss, and Adam Falkenhagen. You probably know Bach, but if you don't play the lute, you may not know the other two names. However, they are important composers for the instrument, and the music of all three has often been recorded. So you might be asking why you should help fund music that is already well represented. Firstly, this album will in fact include some pieces that have never been recorded, so you'll be helping to bring this music to public awareness. Also, this album will feature its own special approach to the music, presented in my unique artistic voice that has never been heard before. The inspiration for this album was actually a musicological research paper I presented at the American Musicological Society's annual meeting in 2013. Weiss had an obsession with a lute piece entitled Les Mots Malheureux by the French composer Jacques Gallo. This piece would have been around 100 years old in Weiss's own lifetime, so it's very unusual that he actually made numerous alternative versions of his own. They are collected here together for the very first time. What's utterly fascinating and so satisfying as a listener is that although all of these pieces are based roughly upon the same model, none of the versions sound like each other. So you have something familiar with continual surprises that keeps you constantly engaged. Weiss recast the original into new variations with wildly different characters, with different keys, different meters, different tempos, and even different dance forms. One, he transforms it from a slow dance piece into a very fast and frantic jig almost. And this gives the set an almost symphonic scale that's found in no other lute music. We know that what Weiss was doing was something that all Baroque musicians did. They just didn't usually write it down, and definitely with not so many different versions. So here, with all of these variations, we have a unique opportunity to hear how one of the great musicians of the time thought about music. Well, I thought to myself, well, I analyze these examples, I know the other sources, I know the style of the music from having performed it a lot, and I have a degree in composition myself. So how could I apply this same knowledge to the work of another composer, as would have been expected at that time? Well, Johann Sebastian Bach was exactly the same age as Weiss, so I turned to his great Suite in G minor, BWV 995. As is typical for a suite like this, much of the music is made up of repeated sections. And on recordings nowadays, you usually hear the performer doing fairly literal repeats with maybe occasional ornament here or there, fills between sections and whatnot. Instead, I wrote out full variations, which we call a double, in the repeated sections in several movements. I also added improvised cadenzas at appropriate places, again, using period examples and text sources as to how this was done in a stylistically appropriate way. This is exactly what Weiss did with Gallo. and entirely in keeping with the exciting spirit of Bach's age. This is true historical performance practice, and you won't hear this particular take on any other recording. So, with this spirit of change and adaptation in mind, I decided to round out the album with 2 sets of variations on chorale tunes by Adam Falkenhagen. So this younger contemporary of Bach's and Weiss's was really an interesting figure who explored the transition in styles from Baroque to classical. Some of these variations sound very much like Bach, while others look forward to Haydn and Mozart. They're extremely difficult, and although the themes are sacred tunes, they're certainly virtuoso showpieces that don't sound churchy at all. I should also mention that I've cultivated a personal style that takes full advantage of the lute's expressive resources, and you'll hear that on display in this recording. In other words, I'm talking about dynamics and tone color. All of these sorts of things, and the way that I'm doing it is also supported by the historical sources, and it's really the way the lute should sound. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm incredibly passionate about presenting this music in this spirit, and I hope you find this project as exciting as I do. Please check out the list of gifts on the Kickstarter project page, and consider helping to support what I know is going to be a wonderful album. Thank you.